Hi everyone, I'm Kim Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. The Vatican announced this past week that 3 survivors of clergy sexual abuse in Chile will meet individually with Pope Francis and will stay at the Doma Santa Marta, the Vatican residence where the Pope lives. The Pope's individual meetings with the men will take place April 27th through the 29th, and then he will meet with them as a group April 30th. In a statement, Greg Burke, director of the Vatican press office, said during these days of personal and brotherly encounter, the Pope wants to ask their forgiveness, share his pain and shame for what they have suffered, and above all, listen to all suggestions that can be made to avoid the repetition of such reprehensible acts. The Chilean survivors have alleged that Bishop Juan Barros of Osorno, then a priest, had witnessed their abuse by his mentor, Father Fernando Caradima. In news from Italy, the Vatican has announced that in July of this year, Pope Francis will be hosting a day of reflection and ecumenical prayer for peace in the Middle East. The Pope intends to invite the heads of Christian churches and communities in the Middle East to join him in a place of significance in southern Italy. Rome Reports has more on the gathering.
On July 7th, Pope Francis will travel to Bari in southern Italy. In this coastal city, the Pope wants to pray for the dramatic reality faced by millions of people in the Middle East who have been wounded by wars, fundamentalism, and religious persecution. The Holy Father has called an ecumenical prayer encounter with the region's Christian leaders, whether Catholics or not. The city of Bari is especially symbolic because it houses the relics of St. Nicholas, the saint who represents a bridge between East and West, and who is also venerated in Russia. Perhaps the common interest for peace in the Middle East and St. Nicholas serve as the framework for a new encounter between Pope Francis and Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, this time in Bari.
Looking now at news from around the world, according to the United Nations, children are bearing the brunt of Yemen's civil war, with 80% of them in desperate need of aid and 2 million suffering from acute malnutrition. Catholic and other faith-based aid groups are urging an end to fighting in Yemen, where their 3 years of war have created a humanitarian crisis, including the world's largest food security emergency. The British Catholic Aid Agency, Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, a member of the Caritas Network, along with its partners, are running programs tackling nutrition and food security for Yemeni communities and local healthcare centers dealing with malnutrition cases, reaching some 30,000 people. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, has reported that more than 5,000 children have been killed or injured, an average of 5 children every day since the conflict began in March of 2015. Aid officials estimate that about 80% of Yemen's 22 million people are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance, such as food, water, shelter, sanitation, and medical care. In news from Rome now, Catholic Voices is a project which started in 2010 in the UK to improve the church's representation in the media. The organization recently gathered in Rome to discuss ways in which speakers can better represent the faith in the public square.
So we divide them.
Coordinators for the Catholic Voices project gathered in Rome for their biennial global meeting. Representatives from 15 countries attended the 3-day event, which included presentations on properly addressing relevant issues in the Church of today. Since being founded in the UK in 2010, Catholic Voices has worked to improve the Church's representation in the media through constructive dialogue.
How we can make a better society together, rather than me trying to tell you that this is how the way you should be living your life. And I think if you create a dialogue at that level, a lot of prejudice that comes from the fact that they tell you, oh, the Catholic Church is a traditional church, it doesn't look forward, is actually very different. It's possibly, I'd say, how Pope Francis speaks to the world today, and I think we're trying to emulate that.
The encounter provided informational sessions on a wide range of topics, from Pope Francis's evangelizing vision to use of social media to gender ideology, all with the goal of properly preparing collaborators for public debate.
It's a service for the church, and when you see the church from the inside, then you feel better equipped to communicate it to the outer world.
Entonces lo que nosotros tratamos de enfatizar es tú buscas coherencia.
What we try to emphasize is you're looking for coherence, so are we. Now, based on that value we have in common, let's hold dialogue. It's not about defending the church because they're not attacking us. They're asking for something. That's a methodology we try to reinforce in the training at this meeting.
To date, the Catholic Voices project has been launched in 20 nations, including the United States. In addition to media information, the organization creates a number of initiatives and campaigns to promote improved understanding worldwide of the Catholic Church. And finally in the news, 2 priests and about 17 parishioners of St. Ignatius Catholic Church in Benue State, Nigeria, were killed April 24th during a morning mass in the church. Attackers also burned about 50 houses, nearly destroying the small community. Nigerian religious leaders have condemned the killing. Benue police said an investigation led police to believe about 30 Fulani herdsmen, a mainly nomadic group, carried out the attack. The state has had nearly 50 attacks in 3 years linked to grazing rights and dwindling fertile land. Monsignor Gabriel Also, Director of Social Communications for the Archdiocese of Lagos, said it was unbelievable that some people would attack worshippers in a church, and added that this is the height of evil and human callousness that must be condemned in all its entirety by every sane society. In Washington, Representative Chris Smith, chairman of the House Subcommittee on Africa, condemned the attacks, saying that Nigeria should explore justice system reforms that address grievances so that herdsmen cease targeting farmers, exasperating religious and ethnic tensions in the process. Well, that is all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.